You want your dog to listen to you, don't you? And maybe learn some cool tricks as well? Training a dog one way or the other is something every dog owner needs to do. And you might have heard of something called positive reinforcement training. Positive reinforcement is a great concept. It's based on rewarding your dog for everything, all the behaviors that you want your dog to actually do. It's kind, it's nice, it's a good energy, everyone's happy. But does it work? Can we use only positive reinforcement? Should we avoid correcting our dogs and saying no altogether? Or could this technique limit our abilities to train our dogs and possibly even put our dogs in some dangerous situations? This is a bit of a loaded topic because a lot of people are very passionate about positive reinforcement training in dogs. And I really do think it's something every dog owner should use. But only using positive reinforcement training might not be the best idea, especially if it could put our dogs in some dangerous situations. Hi, I'm Ingunn, the Norwegian Viking behind Viking Dog Girl. I hold a certificate as a pet food nutrition specialist, and I'm here every week sharing all things dog nutrition, dog health, dog lifestyle, and I like to do things the Viking way, which means no sugarcoating and no BS. I look for the truth and I give it to you straight so that you can help your dog live as healthy, happy, and even as long as possible. So, first of all, let's just look at what positive reinforcement training really is. Basically, you want to reward your dog one way or the other whenever your dog does something that you want him or her to do. It could be by giving your dog a treat, playing with your dog, praising your dog, cuddling with your dog, any type of reward pretty much that you can think of. This is a great way to, for instance, teach your dog to sit or do certain other tricks. When your dog does sit or do what you want your dog to do, you give your dog a treat or reward your dog in the way you want to reward your dog. Whenever your dog does something else, you don't reward. And eventually your dog should be able to find a pattern in that whenever your dog does sit, he gets a reward. Then of course you'll want to introduce the word sit, and so that your dog will actually associate the behavior with the command. And eventually you can start reducing the frequency of rewards and maybe even completely remove them altogether. Now, positive reinforcement training is a great technique, both because it's a kind technique, but also because you're actually showing your dog what you do want your dog to do. By rewarding your dog can understand that, okay, I did something good, like I should do this again probably, right? If you don't reward your dog, how will your dog know that this is what you actually want? Now, what if your dog does something you don't want? What should you do then? Well, that kind of depends on the situation. If your dog is jumping on you, for instance, you could simply turn your back to your dog and completely ignore your dog altogether. In certain other situations, it might be best to simply remove the possibility for your dog to actually do something wrong. For instance, when your dog is a puppy and you don't want your dog to chew on all your shoes, for instance, maybe you should just simply remove the shoes altogether. And in certain other situations, it may be best to just distract your dog from doing the unwanted behavior to doing something else. For instance, going to play with a toy somewhere else. Listen, the idea of positive reinforcement training is great. No need to be harsh with your dog. It's all about positivity. But does it work? Are there situations where it's not the best strategy? Could it even become dangerous? And is it even natural? Just think about this. Dogs let other dogs know when they do something they don't like. And that's both completely necessary and completely natural. Even as a puppy, their dog mom or dog dad will let the puppy know when they have done something that's not okay. Dogs do this in different ways. It can be a movement, it can be growling, and it can be showing teeth, or even snapping sometimes. This can, in most situations, be all fine and even necessary in order to show the other dog that they need to back off. And it's necessary because if you skip that step and the dog gets even more annoyed, it might end up in something much worse. Basically, what the dogs are doing is giving the other dog a warning or kind of just a nudge saying, I don't like that. It's a kind of correction and it's fine. And we humans do this as well, of course. I mean, we tell people that, that's not okay, like, just stop doing that. I don't like it. So really, correcting your dog when she does something you don't want is perfectly natural. Now, of course, there are different ways to correct your dog, and some are certainly not okay. For instance, you don't want to cause any pain to your dog, and you also don't want to cause your dog to be fearful. However, saying something in a firm voice or tugging on the leash, if it's not too harsh, can be perfectly fine. Now, imagine this. Imagine that you have your dog outside, off leash, and your dog sees a squirrel and starts chasing it and heads straight towards a busy road with cars. Your dog is so focused on that squirrel that the toys or treats that you're waving around trying to distract your dog with is not enough. So what do? Are you simply going to stay positive and just call your dog in a kind voice, come here boy, get a treat? No, of course not. You'll do whatever it takes because your dog's life depends on it. Now, of course, if you manage to get your dog's attention and your dog does come back, you'll reward him or her as much as possible because your dog actually did what you do want him to do. So you will use positive reinforcement as well. Now, there are many situations like this, but for instance, another situation would be if you see your dog eating something that could actually be dangerous to your dog. Now, there are different strategies that might work, but if they don't, then what do? Actually, it can be an amazing idea to teach your dog one specific command, meaning leave it or drop it, or whatever you want to call it, of course. That is, you teach your dog to let go of whatever your dog has in its mouth whenever you say that command. This can actually be life-saving in certain situations if your dog, for instance, is about to eat something that could be dangerous. Now, a lot of dogs don't know this command, or maybe it doesn't always work if your dog is super focused on whatever it's eating. So, what do? What tools from your training toolkit are you going to use in this situation? Only treats and toys and positivity, rewards? Or is it okay and maybe necessary to be a bit strict, harsh? Use a firm tone of voice and maybe even nudge your dog a bit. Now, corrections like these, or whatever you want to call them, can be very much misunderstood because it's not to punish your dog, or at least it doesn't need to be used that way. By the way, if you enjoy this kind of no BS, give it to you straight kind of videos on all things dog, then click the subscribe button and turn on notifications to follow my channel. And remember to follow me on Instagram at VikingIngunn. So, a correction isn't a punishment for the dog. It's basically you telling your dog what you do not want your dog to do. I mean, positive reinforcement is great because you do want to show your dog what you want your dog to do, but it can also be necessary to show your dog what you do not want your dog to do. And again, it shouldn't cause any pain or fear in your dog. For instance, if you tug on the leash, it's supposed to be more of an annoyance, for instance, or a distraction, or a way to break the focus from whatever your dog is actually doing that you don't want your dog to do. And that's it. Basically, by using both positive reinforcement and corrections, you're giving your dog all the information. You're telling your dog what you do want your dog to do, and also what you do not want your dog to do. Now, a lot of people do make mistakes, however, when it comes to correcting their dogs, and here are just a few of them. Now, first of all, the word no, for instance, doesn't automatically mean anything to our dogs. You could basically use any word you like. For instance, you could introduce the word lollipop. However, it's all about the way you say it. I mean, if you say lollipop, how would your dog know this has any negative meaning at all, right? But if you say lollipop, it's a bit more obvious that you're being strict with your dog, right? And the same goes for the word no, if that's the one word you want to go with. For instance, if you say, no, don't do that, no, don't do that. I mean, that doesn't really sound like the dog is doing anything wrong, does it? However, no, that's more of a statement. For instance, a while back, I was taking an elevator and a woman came in with a dog that really wanted to jump on me, was super excited to see me and started jumping on me. I was perfectly fine with it, but the woman started saying, no jumping, no jumping, and then just kept letting the dog jump. So what do you think no jumping means for the dog? The dog probably thinks it means, look, it's a new person, let's be excited and meet this new person. Really, how you say something and when you say it means everything in these situations. And another thing, a lot of people use corrections way too often. They either tug in the leash way too often or say, for instance, no, all the time to their dogs. And this is not good. It can be very frustrating for the dog, but it also means that whenever you do need to use the word no and have it mean something, the dog isn't really going to care or might not really care because you say it all the time. So it's just a natural, normal day. You may want to limit the number of times that you use these commands so that they really mean something when you do need them. And of course, the type of situations also dictates how much firmness or how many corrections you do need to use. And the type of dog that you have will also dictate a bit of how much is actually necessary. For instance, different dog breeds, but especially different individual dogs will be more sensitive. I mean, some dogs are so sensitive that if you change your voice at all, your dog can sense it and will listen to you right away. I'll use Kira, my dog, as an example. So I speak with her in Norwegian, but I'll just translate this to English. So when we're inside, sometimes she can get overly excited and almost a bit hyperactive. So if she's like that, the best thing can be to actually ask her to go lay down, and she'll do that and she'll rest, and it's better for her. The thing is, she can be super excited and all like this, and I only need to say, Kira, go lay down. And then she'll go from being like this to and go lay down. And that's it. So for some dogs and in certain situations, a kind voice can be the only thing that you need. However, in certain other situations, for instance with Kira as well, if we're outside, she has this complete focus sometimes on other things in nature, and I'll need to break that distraction sometimes and use a harsher voice, and that's fine. Kira is perfectly okay with it. Now, when it comes to puppies, positive reinforcement may actually be the only thing that you need for a long time. However, when the puppy grows up and its world widens, the right corrections at the right time may not only be useful, but necessary. Listen, it's quite common to believe in extremes. Some people really believe that positive reinforcement training is the only correct thing to do. However, that's not even natural. We humans don't behave like that, and dogs don't behave like that. It can be restrictive, and it can make people feel bad for actually telling their dogs not to do something. Now, note that even when people say they use positive reinforcement, it can be people, it can be dog trainers, it can be organizations, they may say that they use positive reinforcement to train their dogs, but that doesn't mean they only use positive reinforcement. They might also use corrections. This is a very important note. Now, I personally believe that the best thing is a middle ground. I think it's amazing to use lots and lots of positive reinforcement to let dogs know what you really want them to do, but also use some corrections at the right time, in the right way, to let your dog know that this is not okay. I don't want you to do that. Choosing how to correct your dog and when to correct your dog is important. Don't do it too often, and don't do it for something that your dog wouldn't understand. Like, for instance, yelling at your dog for peeing on the floor, but 2 hours after your dog did it. Now, no matter which technique that you use, when it comes to dog training, the key is both consistency and persistency. Now, this video isn't about food, but because what you feed your dog may have one of the biggest impacts on your dog's health, I wanted to mention something. I'm all about feeding dogs a completely natural diet, and I believe the best way to do so is to feed a homemade diet. And that's something basically anyone can do. It can actually be quite simple and even take as little as 5 minutes on a day-to-day basis. Now, I don't want to start a whole new topic here, so if you're interested and want to learn more about how easy it really can be to feed a homemade, completely natural, real food diet to dogs that most dogs find super delicious as well, then you should check out the Viking Dog Diet System. It's a step-by-step system that shows you how to put together homemade meals for your dog in a simple way. Just head over to vikingdogdiet.com now if you'd like to check it out. I hope you've enjoyed this video, and if so, then give it a thumbs up and share it. Now give your beautiful dog a hug from me, and I'll see you next time. Bye.